Imagine standing at the absolute peak of your career. Every project you touch turns to gold. Studios are lining up, audiences know exactly what to expect from you, and they love it every single time. Now imagine walking away from all of it, on purpose, for a single role that could unravel everything you've built. No safety net, no guarantee. Just a bet on yourself. This is the story of an actor who made that exact bet. And what happened when the world found out whether it would pay off. By the mid-1990s, this performer had become one of the most bankable comedic forces in Hollywood. In just a few short years, he'd gone from a relatively unknown television sketch performer to a certified box office phenomenon. Film after film delivered the same winning formula: rubber-faced expressions, manic physical energy, and a chaotic, larger-than-life presence that audiences simply couldn't get enough of. Studios noticed, audiences noticed, and in an industry obsessed with repeating success, his name alone had become a kind of guarantee. People weren't just going to see a movie, they were going to see him. The persona had become the product. That kind of momentum is rare. It's the sort of position most actors spend an entire career chasing and never quite reach. And once you have it, conventional wisdom says you protect it. You keep doing what works. You don't gamble with it, except that's exactly what he was about to do. In 1995, at the height of his comedic dominance, this actor signed on for a role that had nothing to do with the persona that made him famous. Not another lovable oddball, not another over-the-top comedic lead. This time, he would be playing a villain, a comic book antagonist defined by obsession, instability, and a barely contained descent into madness. It was, on paper, a complete departure. The character required something audiences had never associated with him before, a kind of unpredictability that wasn't meant to make people laugh, but to unsettle them. The manic energy was still there, but the target had shifted from comedy to menace. Inside the industry, the decision raised real concern. History wasn't exactly kind to comedic stars who tried to pivot into darker territory. For every actor who successfully expanded their range, there seemed to be another whose attempt at serious work felt forced, miscalculated, or simply unconvincing to audiences who'd already decided who that actor was supposed to be. And there was something else at stake too. This wasn't a small independent film where a misstep could quietly disappear. This was a major studio franchise release, one that would be seen by millions of people within days of its debut. If the performance didn't land, the failure wouldn't be subtle. It would be public, immediate, and very hard to walk back. The skepticism wasn't unreasonable. Comedic actors attempting villain roles have a genuinely mixed track record in Hollywood. Some transitions feel natural, even electric. Others feel like miscasting, a familiar face trying on a costume that never quite fits. The pressure on this performance wasn't just about being convincing. It was about something more specific. Could the very same manic, unpredictable energy that built a comedy career be redirected into something audiences would find genuinely unsettling, without ever tipping back into unintentional comedy? Because if the villain came across as merely goofy rather than menacing, it wouldn't just hurt the film, it would confirm exactly the doubts critics already had. There was no room for a middle ground. Either the risk would expand what people believed this actor was capable of, or it would quietly reinforce the idea that he belonged in one lane and one lane only. When the film finally reached theaters, something unexpected happened. The performance didn't read as a comedian doing an awkward impression of a serious villain. It read as an evolution, as if the same physical commitment, the same fearless energy that had defined his comedic work had simply found a new outlet. The character was theatrical, unpredictable, occasionally unsettling, and unmistakably his. Rather than abandoning the qualities that made him famous, the role seemed to sharpen them, aiming them at something colder and more dangerous than audiences had seen from him before. Critics took notice. Audiences took notice. Instead of undermining the comedic image he'd spent years building, the role added a new dimension to it. It became one of the most talked about performances connected to his name. Proof, almost overnight, that his talent wasn't confined to a single. Register. Here's the part that matters most. The risk didn't derail his career. It didn't erase the comedic identity that had made him a star in the first place. He went right back to making the kind of high-energy comedies audiences loved. But something had shifted. The industry's perception of him had expanded. Doors that might never have opened suddenly did. Directors who might have hesitated to cast him outside comedy began to see other possibilities. The villain role became less of a detour and more of a foundation. Proof of range that would quietly influence the more dramatic, unconventional choices he'd go on to make later in his career. None of that would have happened if he'd played it safe, if he'd stayed comfortably inside the persona that had already made him rich and famous. There's a good chance the industry and the audience would have simply kept seeing him the same way forever. This is the pattern behind nearly every risk that paid off story in Hollywood. Right before the leap, it never looks like a smart decision. It looks reckless. It looks like the kind of move that could unravel a career built over years in a matter of weeks. But the industry rarely rewards actors who stay comfortable forever. It rewards the ones willing to be misunderstood for a little while. The ones willing to risk the label of miscast or wrong choice, if it means proving once and for all that they're capable of more than one thing. Sometimes the role that looks like it could end a career is the exact role that ends up defining it. And sometimes the only way to find out is to take the leap and let the audience decide.